We are joined now to talk about this project further by the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe. Premier Moe, thank you very much for making time for us today. That report made the point that Lake Diefenbaker itself is an artificial lake. It was created way back in the early 1960s through the creation of two separate dams, and the notion had been that it would be a major provider of irrigation water to farmland, and that over the decades, many Saskatchewan residents felt that perhaps its promise had not been fully lived up to. I guess the question is, why now? Why all these decades later did your government take the decision to, I guess, finish the original vision of Lake Diefenbaker?
Well, better now than never, and we wish it would have been finished decades ago, as this was a project that was paused in the early 1970s. But why now? This is a project that does have the opportunity to expand our economic fortunes. It has the opportunity in Saskatchewan to provide the southern half of our province with water security, not only in the agricultural industry, but also to our major municipalities and to our industries that are operating and may be operating in the future in those municipalities, and to provide that water security not for 10 or 15 years, but to provide it for the next century. There's also an element of climate resiliency to this plan as well, in providing that water security throughout our agricultural region in the southern area of the province, vastly increasing, over doubling our irrigable acres here in Saskatchewan. And ultimately, at the end of the day, why now is for the economic opportunity that it will provide up to $80 billion increase in GDP over the course of the next half a century. Those are dollars that we are desperately looking for here in this province. And as we recover from COVID in this nation, I think this is a good project for the federal government to participate in, as they campaigned on it and and are looking at it actively.
How clear or at what state are the talks between the province and Ottawa on financing?
There's a number of different conversations that are happening with the federal government. They did run on this project. This is a positive project not only for Saskatchewan, but for Canada. What we have decided is that we are going to take the first steps to move ahead with the initial stages of the project. It'll provide us with about 80,000 irrigable acres in the near term. And we've broken this into three phases. Phases 1 and 2 will do the west side canal, and the third phase will be the Lower Capel Canal, which will service the areas of Moose Jaw, Regina, and a number of irrigable acres on the way through there, as well as the industries that ultimately will need water, whether they be value-added food processing industries or existing industries that are already utilizing water, such as our potash industry.
What kind of input have you had from corporate players in agriculture in your province, the likes of AGT Foods, for instance, or other corporate players in that segment? What did they tell you about the importance of this project?
Yeah, well, our legislative secretary that has been quarterbacking this project, Lyle Stewart, was previously our agricultural minister, and he has many contacts throughout the agricultural industry, both on the production side, but also on the processing and export side, such as AG2 Foods and many others. So he's been in touch with many, if not all of them, as well as additional entities that may be interested in the province if we have the secure food supply that irrigable land can provide, as well as the water supply that is needed for industries to operate here. So all of those, much of that work has been conducted as we made our way towards this announcement. We not only want to dig these canals and move this water and irrigate these acres. We want to build an industry around this investment, and that is exactly what we're setting up to do. So the industry broadly, not just the agricultural industry directly or the value-added industry, but even industries outside of agriculture that do require water, have been very, very supportive of this project, and we look forward to their continued support and involvement in the years ahead.
What's the state of the land now that will be affected by the project? Is it being farmed at all, or is it just lying idle?
Oh, no, absolutely. It's being farmed, much of it in dryline farming stage now. Some of the initial phase 1 project that we're going to go into here does have some irrigable acres in it. But what we need to do is to expand the initial parts of that canal so that we can outbuild in phase 2. So no, there is some irrigation that is occurring with the Lake Diefenbaker project now. What we are doing is enhancing what is there so that we can build onto it and extend it further into Saskatchewan, into land that is currently being dryland farmed, and likely times the production value per acre by 5 or 6 times by providing water into those areas. This is the vision that former Prime Minister John Diefenbaker had when this project was originally built and this lake was formed. And now what we are doing is we're realizing that Diefenbaker vision with this investment.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Next week in Ottawa, the federal government will provide an economic snapshot. That's the word that it has used to describe its announcement. What would you hope to hear from Ottawa tomorrow on matters related to the country's fiscal status?
Well, 2 things. First of all, with the relationship with the provinces, I would hope to see a commitment to flexibility with some of the funding that is flowing to and through the provincial areas. COVID-19 has affected different areas of this nation in vastly different ways. For example, we entered, as Alberta did, as well as Newfoundland, entered into negative energy pricing for a period of time during this challenge. Other areas have airlines centered out of their particular area that are being impacted. So I would hope that there is some flexibility with the relationship with provinces so that provinces can address what is their particular challenge, whether it be economic or healthcare related. And second, would be a commitment to that same degree of flexibility and funding when it comes to the Canada Health Transfer and health more generally, as the federal government has for years now being a recessive partner in Canada in delivering healthcare in this country. Years ago, there was a 50-50 partnership between the provinces and the federal government. That is no longer, with most provinces in and around a 20% federal funding rate. And so this is a great slippage over decades by the federal government in funding healthcare for Canadians, and it needs to return. It's a provincially delivered service, but it needs to have a full funding partner in the federal government.
Lastly, Air Canada, as you know, made an announcement last week. It was ending service on 80 regional routes across the country, including 4 that affect your biggest cities. Regina to Ottawa, Regina to Winnipeg, Regina to Saskatoon, suspended indefinitely. Saskatoon to Ottawa, suspended indefinitely. What are people saying to you in the province about that move, and how do you feel?
Well, that's a challenge for us. We are always looking for better airline connections coming out of both Saskatoon and Regina. We're an exporting province. We export products to over 150 countries around the world, and we have business that we need to do in those areas. Now, that has been hampered over the course of the last 3 months due to COVID, as has Air Canada, WestJet, and other airlines' business drastically. And this is precisely the conversations that the federal government should be having to ensure that at the end of this, we still have Canadian-owned airlines, and that is a concern for many. And this is the first step that we find to be very challenging, not only in access to service for our residents here in Saskatchewan, but to the broader question about of ensuring that our Canadian-owned airlines survive this COVID pandemic.
Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan, thank you very much for our conversation today.
Thank you, Paul.
That's the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe. Stay with us. We will bring you a conversation from renowned investor Ray Dalio of Bridgewater. That's coming up next.